Micah, the prophet that we received our first reading from this morning, only appears 6 times in the daily Mass lectionary and only once on a Sunday, and it's in year C, which means it only appears every 3 years. So I want to actually focus our reflection this morning on him and really just go through the reading, because when you take it out of its context, it seems to make no meaningful sense. But I think once we unpack it in a brief way, you'll appreciate the power of this work. He says in our reading as it opens, "Shepherd your people with your staff, the flock of your inheritance." You can hear in this a kind of prayer. So who is the shepherd? That's what I want to aim at. Well, right here it seems like it's God. Shepherd your people with your staff, the flock of your inheritance. When you look at Micah, which is only a few chapters long, this theme of shepherd features in an interesting way. So in Micah 2, and our reading today comes from Micah 7, in Micah 2, God says, "I will surely gather all of you, O Jacob. I will gather the remnant of Israel. I will set them together like sheep in a fold, like a flock in its pasture, a noisy multitude of men." So who is the shepherd? Well, it's obviously God. But then it says, "He who opens the breach will go up before them. They will break through the pass and pass the gate, going out by it. Their king will pass on before them, the Lord at their head." And this reference to a king, to a people who are awaiting the promise of a Davidic king, speaks now instead to an heir to the throne of David who's going to come. So you have God acting as a shepherd, but you have this Davidic king, and yet they're both kind of playing the same role, and it's not really clear who's on first and who's on second. Then later in Micah 5, there's this promise that comes up oftentimes during the Christmas season where he says to, "O Bethlehem Ephrathah, from you shall come forth for me one who is to be ruler in Israel." So again, this promise of a Davidic king, whose origin is from of old, from ancient days. "Therefore he shall give them up until the time when she who has labor pains has brought forth. Then the rest of his brethren shall return to the sons of Israel." So this Davidic king, but he's going to be ancient, and yet he's going to be born of a woman. And then you have this shepherd again. It says, "And he shall stand and feed his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God." So it sounds like then this Davidic king is going to be the shepherd, but the shepherd is supposed to be God. And yet this king is supposed to be really old, but he's going to be born of a woman. Who is it? Right? Who is it? That's Christ. Christ is going to shepherd God's people with the staff, the flock who is in his inheritance. So the first thing I could say to you is, God views you not as a slave, not as an employee. You are his inheritance. You are most precious to him. And he fulfills his promise to shepherd you by coming down in the flesh to bring these promises together in the singular person of Christ. And this moves Micah so deeply, he cries out, "Who is there like you?" And that's a play on the name of Micah, because Micah, where we get Michael, literally means who is like God. Who is there like you? And then he goes off to sing his praises, the God who removes guilt and pardons sin for the remnant of his inheritance. And this is striking because when you think of all the things that God has done, you think of the plagues in Egypt, you think of the miracles he does, how he feeds his people in the desert, you think of all the things that Christ himself does, healing the paralytic, raising up the dead. But what catches Micah's attention the most is not all of these displays of power. It is the greatest miracle of all, his compassion. And I don't know that we view God's compassion with that same sense of awe. Who there is like you, the God who removes guilt and pardons sin for the remnant of his inheritance? And so all of this, what these descriptors that I'm going to represent, think of how Christ in his ministry features these more loudly than even his miracles. Pardons sin for the remnant of his inheritance, does not persist in anger, delights rather in clemency, will again have compassion on us, treading underfoot our guilt. How many times when you read the Gospels does Jesus look on God's people, on his people, the flock, his very inheritance, and it says he's moved with compassion? You will cast into the depths of the sea all of our sins. You think of the swine that are filled with the demonic, right? Which sin is associated with the demonic, and how they rush into the sea. You will show faithfulness to Jacob and grace to Abraham as you have sworn to our fathers from the days of old. Folks, what I want you to do today is simply delight that you live in an age where you're not waiting for these things to be fulfilled, where these passages that once were mysterious are now totally clear in your sight, that you can receive from them the fullness of their force, that as you gaze upon the crucifix, you are recognizing the very fulfillment of all the things that God has promised. And greater than any miracle that you may ache for in your life, whether it be a healing, a display of power, a confirmation of faith, it's actually what's happening on that cross that is the greatest act of God from all time and eternity, where the God of our creation and the King of promise, presented to us in the person of Christ, hangs in the greatest act of mercy, where the forgiveness of our sins is achieved, and we can appeal to that gift, that miracle, every moment of our lives. And in doing so, know that we are kept safely in the pen of the Good Shepherd and live under his protection.